No one really wants to give Trump credit for what he's doing, and it just angers me. I have a buddy who's talking to me about Jeb Johnson. Jeb Johnson is the guy who who encouraged first the don't ask, don't tell policy, and then said, well, we need to eliminate it and make gays part of the military. That is the worst thing that's ever happened, putting these women out here on these ships. The last two crashes that we've had where the cargo ships rammed the destroyers were when we had all women crews as officers of the deck, as tactical officers, and in CIC. It is impossible, damn near, Bonner, for a destroyer to get hit by a cargo ship. These girls, they say listen to me. The official record is that all these women had beefs with each other and they were not talking to each other. And that's why the ship ran into a damn cargo ship. It's just incredible to me how crazy this country has become in the name of equal rights for women. Women do not belong on ships with men. Make it an all-female crew. I don't care. But the bottom line is, whenever these women are put in combat situations, whenever they, whether it's an all-woman combat platoon or a mixed unit, they fail because these women are not super women. They're not Joan of Arc. They're just women. You can take a regular man and make a regular man a warrior because you can put muscle on that man. That man has aggression. Females don't have that. And at the end of the day, Bonner, if they do, they're just chicks and they don't perform at our level at all physically.
Nobody knows this better than the upper echelons of the military. When you talk about the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all those, but they have been conditioned and housebroken to the extent that even though they know this privately, you can't get them to say this publicly.
Because all of them, they're cowards. They're trying to pander for jobs outside of the military. So they're trying, I don't even talk to a buddy of mine who was a former 3-star admiral because, he lied to me about Mueller and Benghazi. I said, doggone well that they could have had planes down on Benghazi in 20 minutes from anywhere in the Middle East. And I said, and you go tell me Mueller, or whatever his name was, the former Joint Chief of Staff, he lied in his after action report. Hillary Clinton lied. When are they going to send Hillary Clinton to jail? The American people, I don't think people really understand that we really want Hillary in jail. Bonner, we haven't even began to talk about what's going on with the IG report. We haven't covered any of that. We're still talking about the border. There is so much going on these days. There's so much going on today. And the thing is, you have people running around with all this bad information.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any crime that Hillary could commit that wouldn't eventually lead to her being exonerated in one form or another. And if anyone else did what she has done, that person would have been in the slammer a long, long time ago. So we have an elite in this country that looks out for its own and couldn't care less about the rest of us.
Well,
so the whole investigation of Hillary, of course, was a farce from the very beginning. These people knew at DOJ and the FBI that Hillary had done something that was patently against the law. And so they were under an obligation to investigate it, knowing full well that investigation would ultimately result in her being exonerated because they weren't about to indict or anything along those lines. And that goes a long way toward explaining why the investigation of Hillary was such an unbelievable farce, because these people were simply going through the motions in the expectations that whatever lapses of judgment, whatever twists and turns they made, they would all get off the hook because Hillary was going to be elected. And once Hillary was safely ensconced in the White House, she wasn't about to investigate her own investigation.
Well, you look at this stock guy and his lover, his paramour, Miss Page.
Right.
I don't understand. These people must be married to some weak people. If it were in the media that my wife had been cheating on me, we would be divorced by now. I mean,
yeah. I have been scanning the headlines and reading the articles to see if anything along those lines, either her husband or his wife, has taken any step. Unless I've missed it, there's absolutely nothing out there. So they're both still married, and by the way, they're both still on the taxpayer payroll. Neither one of them has been fired. Yes, Mr. Strzok was escorted out the door a couple of days ago, but he's still going to be drawing a paycheck this afternoon.
Yeah, that bothers me. And I tell you, Strzok or whatever his name is, he's in a lot of trouble, and somebody needs to go to jail. Bonner, there was a young man who took a picture in a submarine for posterity to show his family, and he was proud that he was serving in the military. And he took a picture aboard a nuclear U.S. Navy nuclear submarine that is, and everything inside that hull is considered classified. That's what I was told when I was a midshipman and we were aboard the nukes. You couldn't take pictures; everything's classified. Well, somehow they found this man's phone in a garbage dump, supposedly, and they took the phone from the garbage dump and downloaded the pictures, and here he was. And they traced the phone back to him. He gets court-martialed. I think he was sentenced to something like 36 months in jail or something and he was in prison serving prison time. President Trump pardoned him. Nobody talks about that. I had his mother on my show talking about the incident because I was just so outraged that other Americans are being held to the law, and Hillary Clinton's not. Bonner, if I go out and commit a crime with a child in the car, I'm arrested, put in jail, and that child is turned over to protective services. That's the way the system works. So why is it any different? Yeah, why is it any different when the illegals who are breaking our laws, they try to act like illegal immigration is a victimless crime? It is a misdemeanor to come into the country illegally. And the other lie that these people tell, which is really just mind-blowing if you stop to think about it, that somehow people are flying into America on airplanes and overstaying their visas, and that's where the majority of the illegals come from. That's a damn lie. That's a damn lie.
Right. It's a very widespread lie, and you'll find people who absolutely buy that hook, line, and sinker because they heard it someplace or they read it someplace. But as you said, it is a lie.
It's a lie. And so we transition to, when we're talking about these children on the board. See, I'm sorry. I don't have any sympathy or empathy for illegals, period. To me, they're the most racist people that are coming to this country. They're ignorant. They believe in the Bible. They believe that black people are cursed and that we're should be subservient to white people. And by the way, Latinos consider themselves Caucasian. They don't consider themselves people of color. We're going to skip this these commercials today in this segment. So I really don't have any use for, this browning of America is not good for America as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that I'd like to say along those lines is Booker T. Washington was very clear when he said in his Atlanta exposition speech, which was labeled the Atlanta Compromise speech by black pastors who wanted to play that race game, that he was somehow compromising, but he wasn't. He said we should join hands with our white brethren. And because see, what people don't realize is it wasn't black people who financed Tuskegee. It was good white people who financed Tuskegee and those other HBCUs. But we got all of this race baiting. We got all this race baiting going on, all this race hating. And I say to my friends, why do you hate white people? And I mean, it's not like I'm impervious to racism. I experience racism in some form almost every day, but it doesn't bother me because I have too many friends across the board who are just great people. And I don't let a few people who don't mean anything taint my opinion of America and my friends.
The people who are glorifying the migrants, as they are fashionably called, along the border, and want to let as many other men as possible, are simply interested in importing as many future voters as possibly can. This all an effort to transform the United States from what it was to what these people want it to become in a few decades. This is all about changing the demographics of the country. These people couldn't care less about the kids.
Yeah.
If they did, they would have been raising hell about Obama's incarceration, to use a word that's not too strong here, of the kids during his administration. You didn't hear a peep out of them.
But Bonner, Bon, I want to interject this on that point. I was talking to a guy yesterday who refused to acknowledge that those pictures were from the Obama administration of those kids in cages. He refused to admit the truth. He refused. He's just talking about Trump. I can't talk to people like that. I can't talk to people who refuse to acknowledge the truth. Because see, at the end of the day, for me, the facts are the facts. They are what they are. If Ronald Reagan was a racist, I would say Ronald Reagan was a racist, but I knew he wasn't, knowing his history. Somebody told me that Jeff Sessions is a racist. Well, I was on in a march with Jeff Sessions. I shared a dais with Jeff Sessions, and I can tell you, he's not. And here's a man who took down the Ku Klux Klan single-handedly, and my friends are talking about JFK and RFK, and I'm going, they didn't do a damn thing. The only reason they were upset with the Southerners was because they didn't show him any respect. Bobby didn't have an epiphany that he loved black folks. He was angry because they didn't give him the respect that he thought the Attorney General of the United States should have. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely right.
So, here we are again, looking at the Trump doctrine, looking at, everybody wants to take away what Trump did week before last. It's very interesting that no one's mentioning that week before last, Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un to talk about denuclearizing the peninsula and ending the Korean War. And nobody's talking about that today. All they're talking about is some crying children on the border who are not our children. Yeah. But Bonner, when you talk about this, when you go out to talk about this to other people, think about this for a second. Do you think that the people on the south and west side of Chicago can go to Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Panama, Colombia, Peru, and ask for sanctuary and ask for refugee status from the gangs and the gang culture here in Chicago? Do you think that? Do you think that is what? Go ahead, Bonner.
No. You faded out for a minute. No. Of course they can't. Of course they would not be well received if they so tried. No. If these people coming up from Central America looking for political asylum, what would they have looked for political asylum? The country they entered after leaving Guatemala, wherever it was, that would have been Mexico. They went right to Mexico. They came straight up here because that's the game that's being coordinated here. These people didn't come up here. There was nothing spontaneous about any of this.
Right.
All of this was orchestrated. And all of this was orchestrated for the purpose I talked about just a few minutes ago. You have to change the demographics of the country, and that is
And
what
you
this
know,
is all about.
and
Also divert attention from Trump's success in Singapore 2 weeks ago. Suddenly nobody's talking about a possible ending to this whole horrendous mess that we had in Korea, thanks to Trump. No, now that's being swept under the table and replaced by charade on the border.
yeah, and that's what I was just talking about. But you know, here we are, and I can tell you that I don't have one iota of sympathy, compassion, empathy for any of these children I see at the border or any of the people. If I had it my way, I would call out the militia and have the militia on the border saying, you know, putting down ground fire. Hey, you come across the river, you jump over the fence, we're going to pop you.
Yeah,
but, because, you
I
know,
believe that message would get back to Central America and elsewhere that you're not welcome.
You're not welcome
You're
here.
Yeah.
And you know, as we continue with this nonsense of bringing these poor, illiterate people to our country, these are people who don't want guns. These are people who think that you shouldn't be able to say whatever you want to say. They're passive. They're ignorant. They're illiterate for the most part. Do you know that 70% of these people don't have a high school education? And the high school education that they have there is comparable to our elementary school.
Right, which in our elementary schools are bad enough.
Yeah. So I mean, so you know, so you know, it always kills me that Don Lemon and his ilk are always talking about Trump talking about the about people who are coming here are murderers and he's right. They're not sending their best people. They're sending their ignorant people here, and we need to do something about it. And, you know, if the government doesn't do something about it, then the people need to start doing something about it, because at the end of the day, these people in Washington are not doing. The only group of people that I see even halfway doing the people's work is the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're some enterprising MS-13 gang leader, and you're looking at all these people on the border, what are you looking at? You're looking at future members, because these people really can't do much of anything else, given their level of education, given the circumstances of the families from which they come. They are ideal recruits for MS-13 and like-minded organizations.
Mm-hmm. There is a Heather Baldwin is calling in. Let me bring Heather on. Heather, how are you? Heather?
I'm great. How are you, Charles? Thanks for having me.
I'm outstanding. The death penalty. Bonner Cohen is on with us for right now. Hey, Bonner.
Mm-hmm.
Let's finish up here. Yeah. And we've talked about, we focused on this south of the border, this thing on the south of the border. But I just hope that they round these people up and send them all the way back like they did, like Eisenhower did with Operation Wetback.
That's exactly right. This has been done before, and it was done by a president who is held in very high esteem. And so if I could do it, why can't Trump do it?
And we had less than 1/10 of the size of the Border Patrol we have today, and not any of the other ancillary organizations. Hey, thanks, Bonner. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend, sir.
Okay, I'm going to do it. You too.
All right. Okay. Miss Baldwin, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Charles?
I'm good. Now, you're concerned about the death penalty. You know, Heather, what's your take on the death penalty right now? Where are you guys?
Yeah, so we have lots of concerns about the death penalty. Basically, we believe that it doesn't align with our conservative values. of things like limited government, obviously giving an error-prone government the power to take the lives of its citizens is something that is concerning to many of us who are either conservative or libertarian. We are concerned about the fact that innocent people are convicted and sentenced to death, and certainly those of us who are pro-life, as I am, that's very concerning to me. And we're concerned about the cost of the death penalty because many of us are fiscal conservatives as well. And so we see that we're, oftentimes pouring millions of dollars into this broken system that just isn't working. And any other sentence is much cheaper than the death penalty. So those are, in a nutshell, some of our concerns.
Well, Heather, what I find that I have a saying that I believe in wholeheartedly, and it pertains to most things related to issues of behavior. And that's especially that liberalism seems to be in direct proportion to the distance you are from the problem. I believe in the death penalty. I believe that people should be put to death. And I don't think that they should sit on death row for 25 or 25 years appealing the process. I think that the process needs to be swift. I think they should have adequate representation. I think that when cops lie and are found lying and framing people, that those police officers are held accountable, that they are dismissed from the organization they work with because they've lied. They're never hired in law enforcement again, and they're incarcerated. That will bring some fairness to this system where we don't have all of these false positives on people sitting on death row. But I certainly believe we need to bring back the death penalty, but I feel that it needs to be meted out earlier than having people sit in jail for 20 years. They're not paying a debt to society at all. They're not paying restitution to the people they hurt. They're not paying for the meals that they eat or the heat or the water or anything else.
Yeah, that's right. And most people are interested to find out that the vast majority of the cost in a death sentence is actually not in the appeals process. It's in the initial trial process. So you have two trials instead of one that just determines guilt or innocence, and then you have an entirely separate trial that is the sentencing phase. And I think, I've heard from a lot of folks across the country that why can't we just shorten that appeals process? It's ridiculous. And certainly we do see folks who have spent 30 years on death row and then are proven innocent. And so I've become thankful that appeals process exists.
Heather, those are very few people. There are very few people that are found innocent. The majority of people on death row. And see, so my thing is simply this. Some people fall through the cracks, but that's only because we have not focused on providing people with adequate defense representation, and we do not punish law enforcement officials for lying and prosecutors for lying and hiding information. In fact, they get promoted into the judiciary, which is unconscionable.
It's a problem, isn't it?
It is a problem.
That's right.
So when
it is.
But in terms of the few people who are exonerated versus the murderers who are out here, see, I always say when you're around those murderers, when you live around those murders, or you've had one of these horrible situations happen in your family, your attitude changes about the death penalty, having guns in the home. It changes about all of that stuff. Just to give you an example, I am a pro-gun guy, pro-gun, pro-law and order, and I'm the kind of person who, I don't need the police to tell me when I need to shoot somebody, and I know that the police are not going to protect me or my family. And I've had that happen too. But I'm just going to give you one example because I can point out at least 8 or 9 examples of where having a gun saved my life. But this one, my producer on my radio show down at a liberal radio station. She was my producer, and she always railed against, we were trying to get concealed carry in the state of Illinois. And she'd always, when I was on the air, off the air, she'd say, you know, I don't know why you want guns. We don't need guns. There are too many guns on the street, and all that stupid, what I call black folks nonsense. So I was taking her home one night, and she lived in a bad part of town. And I was driving a Mercedes S550. So there were 5 black guys standing kitty corner to where we were at a stoplight. And they started walking towards the car with their heads covered. They pull their hoods up and put their hands in their pocket and start coming toward the car. Well, I couldn't get out into traffic. I couldn't run the light. And so things were really happening real fast. So I lowered the window, ratcheted a bullet in the chamber, and she's screaming in the seat next to me, why are they coming here? What do they want? Why are they walking toward us? And so I said to her, would you please be quiet so I can figure out which one of these guys I'm going to shoot first? And just as about the time I was getting ready to start shooting at these people, they turned away from the car. Well, they probably figured that I did have a gun because I rolled the window down and I didn't look scared. So yeah, they went the other way. There was an easier target for another day. So the next day she was shaking visibly. She gets back to work and she's told everybody about this situation. And she said, you know, I will never complain about people having guns again, because if you hadn't had that gun, they would have shot you, pulled you out of the car, taken me off somewhere, raped me until they got tired, killed me, and who knows what would have happened. But the point that I had a gun changed all that narrative. And that's the way I feel about the death penalty. There are some people who need to be put to death, period.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Charles. And I think the problem is the death penalty is unfortunately used, you know, only in a small number of cases. And so the unfortunate part of that is that it really doesn't play out to be a deterrent. You know, I mean, we have plenty of murder cases that happen in this country, and I think the death penalty is used in maybe 1% of homicide cases. And these are folks who are not thinking about, you know, a consequence. They are planning, for the most part, that they are not going to be caught. And so they're not rational folks, you and I, unfortunately. And many of these are kinds of passionate about a death sentence. And I did just want to go back for a second, if it's okay with you, to talk about innocence a little bit more. Because when I started this work, I thought, you know, I'm sure that there are folks, like you said, who slip through the cracks here and there, but for the vast majority of folks who are sentenced to death are guilty. And I was really shocked to find that since the 70s, there have been over 160 people who've been exonerated from death row in this country. And it's about 1 exoneration for every 10 executions that are carried out in the U.S. So it happens more than we think. I mean, it is a problem, and there are cases where it is an accidental case, you know, but there are other cases that are completely fraudulent, and where we've seen DNA technicians or police officers or prosecutors who knowingly, you know, like you said, railed against someone, and our system is set up in such a way that happens. It's not a perfect system. It's run by human beings.
Well,
to me and many of the conservatives that are, yeah, go ahead, Charles.
I said that, but the problem is that nothing happens to the cops or the prosecutors. That's the problem. These people are generally promoted. See, there should be, I always say in the black community, when there's a bad cop who gets off for shooting a black person, we should have a group like the Israel Defense Force. They go around and they assassinate people who do bad things to Jews. That's a deterrent. The IDF is a deterrent to messing with Jews unfairly.
And and since you bring it up, there's a major problem with racial disparity in our death penalty system, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to folks who know anything about our criminal justice system and the racism that exists. But for example, if you kill a white person, you are far more likely to end up on death row than if you kill a person of color.
Well, no question.
That's pretty problematic, I think.
Yeah, but they need that chaos in the black community. And the problem with your supposition, Heather, is simply this for me. Black criminals are allowed to prey on black people, defenseless black people. Here in Chicago, the mayor took guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens while he supported and gave city contracts to gang members who ran roughshod in the black community. That is a fact. And people try to act like it's not, but it's definitely a fact. We know this from the history of Chicago. And that's why I have a problem with the black church. I have a problem with black leaders because they're cowards. They want to hide behind the Bible. They want to hide behind God. And God has nothing to do with being a man and defending your family and defending your people. And then they want to blame white folks for black folks killing black folks. And I go, wait a minute. How do you, I don't get that connection. You know, black people are killing black people and you're blaming it on white people. I mean, I don't understand it. They're not killing white people because they know, like you just pointed out, that they will face the death penalty or worse. Okay.
Perhaps that plays a factor. I mean, I think you bring up a good point about public safety, right? And the fact that I think we can all agree on that we want to keep our community safe. I'm a mother. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old daughter. And I care deeply about how to keep them safe. And so in this work, I've talked to a lot of members of law enforcement. I've asked them, you know, what tools do you need in order to keep community safe? Is it the death penalty? And inevitably they say, no, it's, you know, if we could spend the money that we spend on the death penalty and spend it on better training for our officers, or if we could spend it on trying to help the drug problem that we have, or on better equipment for our police officers, that's beneficial and that keeps the public safe. And so to me, I look at it from a cost benefit perspective and say, are we getting anything from the money that we're spending? It doesn't seem like it.
I'm missing you on that point. You know, I think that police departments are funded. I think that one of the things we probably need to do is to make sure that people get adequate representation and that the police and prosecutors play by the rules. And when they don't, they're held accountable. But they're not held accountable. They're promoted, they become judges, and they mete out the law unfairly to those of us who are outside of the system, let's say. Like, people try to act like cops don't lie. I've never had a cop go to court and tell the truth about me in a traffic stop. Never. And I hit a man one day who jaywalked in front of me. And the cop said that I hit him in the crosswalk, which changes the total legal aspects of the case, but it still doesn't make any difference. If I hit him in the crosswalk and he was jaywalking, which is illegal. But here in Chicago, they don't want to enforce the jaywalking law, so they make up all these crazy rules for drivers. And, you know, that's the problem with liberals. I detest liberals. I detest libertarians. I think that people need to be held accountable and they need to follow the rules. I follow the rules. When it says you wait at this red light, you have a red light. You wait at this red light behind the intersection until your light is green. And then you have the right of way to proceed to the next intersection. Well, here in Chicago, you have pedestrians who actually walk off the curb, impede your right of way, and get hit, and they try to charge the driver with a misdemeanor or a felony. That's how crazy.
That's crazy. And I think,
well, I mean, like I said, when you talk about these 1 of every 10 people are innocent, I think that's a small price to pay for putting murders to sleep. But I think that the process is flawed in that the appeals process is way too long. I think that these people should be processed in no longer than 24 months and put to sleep. I mean, I don't have any compassion for them at all.
I think the question then, Charles, is how much faith do you have in the system? I think you have more faith in it than I do, because even if I think that police officers and prosecutors could be held accountable for their actions, I still don't see a way where our system functions perfectly or anywhere close to perfectly. And I don't want to see anyone who's innocent end up death row. I mean, I've gotten to know these people. They're human beings who have families, who have, many of them have, have no prior criminal record and found themselves in this situation.
This is the point,
and
then,
could
Heather.
be executed for a crime they didn't commit.
This is the point. You're missing a key point, Heather, and that is adequate legal representation must be provided to these people, not a public defender. I had a public defender, and I can tell you at one point, and I can tell you they're about as useful as salt in your bread, as the salt in your bread, okay? Or as a cup of warm spit, okay? At least with a cup of warm spit, you can clean some windows and clean some baby faces or something, maybe. But
right, and I think even I've heard of cases where there were brilliant attorneys, but when a prosecutor withholds evidence in a case, I mean, even a brilliant defense attorney, I mean, sort of has his or her hands tied, and I've seen cases where there was DNA evidence available, and the technician changed the results and said, "Yeah, this guy is a perfect match," when in fact he wasn't and had nothing to do with the crime.
Well, this is the point.
Even if you are the most amazing defense attorney,
this is the point. Then why isn't that technician arrested for falsifying information? Why isn't that technician incarcerated? This doesn't happen. It's a flawed system, and people need to go to jail. That's my whole point. That's my whole point. You can't have a system that continues to be flawed and people are not punished. And nobody wants to send these so-called law-abiding law enforcement people to jail. They have to be held accountable. They think that somehow because you take this oath that you're, as a black man in America, I know that cops are lying SOBs. I had a cop pull a gun on me in Salt Lake City Airport in 2013 in broad daylight in a 5-mile-an-hour zone. I was going 10 miles an hour. And I went to get out of the car because I was trying to get my wallet, and I told him that, and he pulls out his gun. Now, do you understand that my thoughts about this young man is if his head was blown off, I would not care. But there is no penalties for his actions. There's no resolution for his actions. Right. See, and until you guys,
right. And you see prosecutors who face immunity.
Until you guys start focusing on that aspect and start demanding that people who lie under oath, i.e., prosecutors, technicians, cops, that they receive they do time for perjury. They do time for falsifying evidence. It's not going to change the system. But you're focused on the wrong things. These poor people who can't do. No, that's not where the focus should be, because they're going to continue to do what they do, and you're going to continue to have these people because you're not demanding that the people who falsely accuse them in the first place are held accountable.
I think it's important that we do hold people accountable. And by the way, I definitely don't say these poor people. That's not why I do this work at all. I mean, I do this work because I care about public safety. I care about murder victims' family members. And I've heard from too many of them that the process is incredibly harmful for them all the way through for a number of reasons. And that's why, many conservative leaders nationally have taken steps away from the death penalty as well, because we just can't seem to get it right. I mean, Illinois is an example, too, of a state that tried over and over to make the death penalty work and inevitably gave up. And there were Republicans and Democrats who supported the death penalty repeal in that state. And that's what we're seeing across the country as Republicans who are throwing up their hands.
You're missing the point, Heather. Here in Illinois, the reason that Governor Ryan put a moratorium on the death penalty was because of the corrupt prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and the withholding of evidence. That's why he put a moratorium on the death penalty. It just plays right into my point.
Yeah, and I guess, Charles, I don't know how to solve that problem. I mean, I'm with you. I think people should be held accountable, and I think we should pursue ways, when you withhold evidence or you break the law by lying under oath. I think that, yes, we should hold those people accountable.
But we're not.
I guess where we disagree is I don't think Go ahead.
But we're not. And see, for me, 10 dead people, I don't want a man sitting on death row or a woman sitting on death row for 20 years waiting to die. I think that's inhumane. But we have to go back and we have to change this justice system that's not just. That's the bottom line. And we know that we have judges that are usurping the law and making their own law. And you know, I mean, like you look at all these federal judges who are stopping President Trump from his immigration policies, or they're stopping DACA. DACA was ruled unconstitutional, but these judges are still trying to hold America and our government accountable when they've said, the courts have said, I'm sorry, but President Obama did not have the constitutional authority to create this dreamer status or this DACA authorization. It's unconstitutional. And here we are still trying to enforce what? DACA. Come on.
Well, and I think you and I can agree, Charles, that corruption exists. And corruption has always existed, unfortunately. As long as there have been human beings, corruption has existed. And to me, I think I'm not confident we can ever get a system that is not corrupt. I think we can make steps to make it better. We can hold people more accountable. But I don't believe we can ever get to a place where we can stand and say innocent people will not be sentenced to death.
But you don't think that we you don't get. That's not the point. The point is, so what if one person is innocent and dies, and you kill 10 people who are real murderers and decide to and the word gets out, oh, if I get caught murdering somebody, I'm going to die. I'm sorry, that is a deterrent. You know, the other question we have to ask ourselves is, how do drugs get into these prisons? These prisons are nothing but drug dens. You can get anything you want in prison that you can get. In fact, you can get more than you can on the outside. That's why guys keep going back to prison. You know, you talk to these people and they go, well, you know, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about meals. I don't have to worry about heat. I don't have to worry about, I can watch TV. I can read. I can get an education. You know, I mean, really? You know, the American prisons are too good. We spend too much money trying to treat these people well. They need to have one meal a day, one shower a week. They need to work every day doing something to pay restitution to not only their victims, but to society at large. And they're not.
Yeah, and you and I disagree that one person is okay. In my opinion, one person is way too many to be executed who's innocent. I think that that's not acceptable in our country, and maybe that's because I've gotten to know some of them, like I said, and I couldn't tell, you know, my father, my family members that, okay, it's okay, you're the one who's going to be executed, but it's, you know, hopefully going to deter other people in the future. I think that's not acceptable.
All I can say is, in the real world, I would rather sacrifice as a former warrior. Good people die, and bad things happen to good people. So if I can kill 10 bad people and one innocent person dies, that's acceptable a number for me. That's very acceptable. So out of 100 people, 90 are bad who die, and 10 were innocent. Hey, I'm sorry. You know, there are errors. Nothing's perfect. So, you know, that's the difference. See, the difference is, I would rather have 9 people no longer breathing and sending a message to other potential murderers that you will not be breathing in about 3 months if you commit this murder or this crime.
I think the thing is that the death penalty is not our only option, right? We can hold people accountable for their actions. We can separate them from society. We can protect the public.
But the question is, why are we spending the money, Heather? Why are we spending anywhere from $35,000 to $55,000 or more dollars every year to warehouse a human being? It's absolutely unconscionable, and it's inhumane.
But in a death penalty case, you're spending 3 to 4 times that amount, which is really hard to believe. But every cost study ever conducted has shown that it's millions more when you're talking about a death sentence.
No, it's not. And the only reason it is because they draw out the appeals process, and they continue to draw out these appeal processes, and they need to shorten the time on those. They need to get busy. They need to get back to, like I said before, you look at the whole criminal justice system. How do you get drugs into a prison? I mean, really? How do you get drugs into that controlled environment? Nobody's paying attention to what's going on here. And, and so we just talk about these issues like the death penalty. Well, there are people on death row who have cell phones. How do you get a cell phone on death row? It was not approved by the prison.
I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that there are plenty of mandates in place that the Supreme Court has put because they say that death is different, and they don't want innocent people to be executed and sentenced to death.
Well,
and so, like I said, the cost is actually not in the appeals; it's in the trial process.
Well, the money is in the appeals process. The trials are pretty much done, and once they're sentenced, I know people who've gone through that on both sides of the ledger, and I can tell you that whole 20-year appeal thing is where all the time and money is spent, and we need to stop it. It's just a waste. It's an industry, and it's an industry that needs to be held accountable, and law enforcement needs to be held accountable. Hey, we're almost at the end of the show, so I'm gonna give you the last word.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Charles, and I encourage folks, if they want to learn more about what we do, they can check us out at www.conservativeconcerns.org.
Well, that's great. Hey, thanks so much for being with us, Heather. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Charles. Have a great day.
You too. Have a great weekend. Okay. Hey, you know where Charles Butler is on the death penalty? Put him to death. On the border. Take him out. Oh, man, I tell you. Innocent people, murdering innocent people. No, I didn't say murdering innocent people. I'm responding online here. But I think that killers need to be put to death. That's all. And, hey, I just don't have any sympathy about that. And I don't care about if you're black, white, yellow, purple. You got to go. And we have too much empathy and sympathy for bad people. Hey, look, we are at the end of the show, and I know that we're going to quit broadcasting here in a minute. So, hey, look, talk to you tomorrow, Monday, same time, same place. Take care. Okay. Okay. Okay, folks, we are back. We're going to do an after show. We're off the Red State Talk Radio broadcast and the TalkStream Live broadcast. So we're doing this behind the scenes or after the show, as we call it, after the show. I got a couple of folks out here on Facebook that said, did he just say so what to murdering innocent people, Hannah? See, we have too many women in this issue. The bottom line is, I'm not a bleeding heart. And when you have something happens to someone that you love, then you'll stop being a bleeding heart too. Diana Scott says, how many lawyers waiting to represent black folks when get charges stacked on them? Hey, that's not the issue. The issue is, and it may be an issue, but the issue is we, the American people, need to provide adequate representation. And I'm not talking about a public defender for these folks who were brought up on capital crimes. And yeah, I mean, you know, I've been charged falsely, but I had to go out and pay a good attorney and a good PI to vindicate me. Like O.J. Simpson. I mean, they had railroaded O.J. Simpson. Evidence didn't mount up. Everybody forgets the fact that the blood expert, Dr. Lee, usually testified for the prosecution. He was testifying for the defendant and said, hey, the evidence just doesn't match up. I love it. Hey, look, it's Friday. It's Freedom Friday. It's time for us to get out of here, sign off. And, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And we're going to be back on Monday, and we'll finish up. So thanks. Take care. This is Charles Butler signing off, and I'll be back on Monday.
Red State Talk Radio is now